very good morning to you all. I'd like to present something this morning of a geological nature that attests to the historical accuracy of the scripture. Hence the title of the creation moment, Rocks and Layers in the Earth. So we start with a scripture in Genesis 1:10, which reads, "And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he the seas. And God saw that it was good." The age of the earth is 4.576 billion years, we are told. It is a proven scientific fact. The geological evidence is overwhelming, really. Hopefully, we're not just believing what the scientific majority has said for the last 200 years, as there's plenty of evidence that the claim is false, including the fossil record and rock layers. Consider first where the idea of millions of years came from. Modern geology really started to develop in the later 18th and early 19th centuries. Prior to that, there were just a few men who devoted some time to the study of the rocks of the earth. Some of them believed that creation and Noah's flood explained the evidence. Others rejected the history in Genesis 1 to 11 and imagined a different history of the earth that included many catastrophic floods over untold ages, a much longer history than the Bible gave, and that is now widely accepted by most as factual. In university geology class, students are taught that it took many hours to deposit a mud layer, a tiny fraction of an inch thick. Yet they learn that the North American continent contains the Bright Angel Shale, which is exposed in the Grand Canyon, is up to 500 feet thick, and the Marcellus Shale underground in eastern Ohio, Pennsylvania and New York is up to 900 feet thick. The teachers explained that it must have taken millions of years for these muds to settle out of water and be deposited in those layers. Now multiply that by all the different mud rock layers in the geological record, which are more common than any other type of rock layers, like limestones and sandstones. No wonder evolutionary geologists believe that the geologic record took hundreds of millions of years to accumulate. That's why they scoff at biblical creationists who say that many of these mud rock layers were deposited all at once in the year-long global flood, Genesis flood. Then in 2007, the millions of years story got turned on its head. Carefully conducted experiments showed how mud particles could fall quickly through rapidly moving water. Nobody had ever thought to test that before. If you scoop up a bucket of muddy sandy water, the larger sand particles settle to the bottom first, and then the mud. Geologists assume this is how the Earth's rock layers form, slowly over millions of years. Then the 2007 experiment with a rapidly moving water in a flume showed that mud particles clump and are deposited at the same rapid rate as the sand in multiple layers as the water flows sideways. That's exactly what would have happened during the year-long flood, which rolled over and destroyed the Earth underwater. Astounding. If mud rocks make up the majority of the geological record, as these geoscientists already say, then most of them could have been deposited rapidly during the year-long global flood cataclysm. Geoscientists used a special kind of instrument called a racetrack flume at Indiana University in Bloomington. A normal flume looks like a very long, narrow glass aquarium. Researchers dump sediments in one end and release water to surge over those sediments. The geoscientists then watch to see how the water deposits the sediments down the flow. Normally a flume is very long and straight, but a racetrack flume goes in a circle. So when the water is released, it flows around and around in a large circle and accelerates as it goes. As a result, the water flows much faster than in a long straight flume. The geoscientists discovered that the fast-moving mud particles were deposited very rapidly at the same speed that sand grains are deposited. Upon further investigation, they discovered that mud particles in the rapidly moving water stick together to form large clumps about the size of sand grains. The technical term for the process is flocculation. The clumps, floccules, containing as many as 500,000 tiny mud particle plates, end up behaving like large sand grains. When they looked further into this mystery, the scientists understood how the mud particles stuck together. The minerals have residual weak electric charges on the surfaces of their crystalline structures in the rapidly moving water. These tiny plates are forced so close to one another that the weak opposite charges attract. We used to think of mud forming slowly as it settled from the top, falling down one layer at a time, vertically in standing water. Now we know that many layers form instantly at the same time from the water flowing horizontally under high energy conditions, and they are the high energy conditions of the global flood runoff in Genesis 8:3, which verifies that. So what do you know? Science again caught up with the Bible. These stunning deep results were reported in Science, the leading weekly science journal. In the same issue, two other geoscientists commented that this mechanism for depositing muds is at odds with perceived wisdom. They admitted that the science of mud accumulation was poised for a paradigm shift. This geological rethink can serve as a reminder of the wisdom of Solomon, who stated, "He that is first in his own cause seemeth just, but his neighbour cometh and searcheth him." In contrast to the simplest individual who as a child simply trusts God, that God will be wiser than all his teachers. Therefore, as Psalm 119:99 states, "I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation." Thank you for listening.